Hello everyone, today we're going to look at cleaning and restoring the relays, your signal relays that you find fitted to vintage amplifiers and receivers in particular. These were used for a couple of reasons. Firstly, to switch the signal between the different sets of outputs, and secondly to protect the speakers in the event of a failure. You can clean these things in situ, but as you can see in this example of this Akai amplifier, a bit of a rat's nest there and it's quite close to other components, so I find it best and would advise to remove them first before you attempt this. So here you can see we're actually removing the solder on the reverse of the circuit board. Now you can use a desolder braid. I recommend you don't do that and that you actually use a desolder pump. You actually get a cleaner result, and you'll find it much easier to actually remove the relay, particularly where in a case like this where the actual pins are fairly thick and fairly solid. You get a better result. As you can see here, you get nice clean holes to remove the relay. That's the relay removed, still in its outer case. This needs to be removed. You can usually pry these off by just lifting the three little tabs at the edges, or you can actually snap them off and just pull the cover off. We're going to see later you can glue this back into place quite easily. And that's the actual relay. Now, to clean the contacts of the debris and corrosion that builds up over 30 or 40 years of use, what you actually want is a piece of wet and dry abrasive paper. So as you can see here, this is a very fine abrasive paper of the type used perhaps to use on car bodies and clean off the paint and filler material. So that's the sort of thing you're looking for really. And you also need something called Kaig Deoxit, which is a really good quality deox fluid, which will help to remove some of the oxidation from the contacts. So you spray the fluid onto the strip, and as you can see here, you then feed the strip through the actual contacts. Now there's a set on the bottom and the top, and we're going to clean the contacts in turn. So firstly, we've got the abrasive side facing upwards. As you can see, that's going to clean the top set of contacts, and you just pull the paper through between the contacts, and in this position you actually need to hold the contacts down so they make contact. So you're actually putting some pressure on to the abrasive paper, and you pull this through several times. I recommend maybe 5, 6, 7 times. You can wet the paper if necessary, but usually one application is actually fine for this. So you can see, insert, press down and then drag through. And once you've done that several times, you'll have moved the crud and corrosion that's built up over many years. Now once you've done that set, let's wet it again. You don't need loads of this, just to wet the surface. You don't need to flood the relay. Okay, pop it in again. And you can use this method if you want. I was previously just pulling it through completely. You can just pull it backwards and forwards if you wish. So the key is to reverse it. So you've got to turn it over so you ensure that the top and the bottom sets of contacts are clean. So there we go, this is cleaning the bottom set. You don't want to press hard on this, just enough pressure to grip is fine. You don't want to actually effectively file away the contact. You just want to clean off the corrosion that will have built up on the surface. It's important to do this even if the relay is working. I mean, there are obvious signs that it's not. Obviously the signal can actually drop out and you can find that the signal is intermittent. Even if your amplifier appears to be working fine, you can hear clean what you think is a clear signal. I still recommend you do this because at low signal levels in particular, these things can introduce distortion into the signal path because the signal is actually going across a non-linear connection because of all the dirt and crud and corrosion that will have built up over the years on these contacts. So clean them regardless of the obvious need to do so. It's just good maintenance, good preventative measure to do this. Now once it's done, what you want to do is give the thing a spray again with the deox fluid. This is Deox D5, by the way, so this is general purpose deoxing and cleaning fluid. So just give it a squirt through, open the contacts by pressing on the little fins there, just so you get the contact fluid between the contacts. Give it a dab to wipe it off, dry it off I should say, and then just leave it to dry for, or for the fluid to evaporate for maybe 15-20 minutes before you reassemble the thing back into the case. Now most of the time the case will just clip back into place, or the friction will be enough to hold it on. If it's not, don't be afraid just to put a little tiny dab or two of glue onto the seal and just hold that down for a little while until that sets. You can snap it off easy enough afterwards if you need to, it's not a problem. Okay, now we're going to put it back into the circuit. So it's on the other side of the board. It's held in place with a cloth which is between the actual relay and the table surface, just to put some pressure on to push the pins back through the board. What you don't want is for the thing to be rattling around and the pins not to be fully through the holes. So all we're going to do here is we're going to just solder this back into place. As I said, these are quite thick, heavy pins, so you want a decent iron. You don't want anything too tiny, so nothing less than about 25 watts. This is a 75 watt temperature controlled iron. So we've got this set quite high, and just roll the solder into the joints there. Just heat the entire joint, and just let the solder melt into the joint. Don't be frightened to go around this several times. You want a good solid connection. You don't want any dry joints there, so go around it once. If anything looks like it could do with a little more solder, then just go reflow it and add a little more. Just make sure the thing's good and hot so that it flows nice and freely into the connection. There you go, and the final one. You can of course replace these with new relays. They do make these things still in roughly the same format. The only thing you might find is that there's a set of pins on this which are not used. So if you do buy a brand new relay, they'll often work, but you may find you need to actually trim off some of the pins in order for it to fit the circuit board. So you can do that if you wish. The whole point of restoring this nice vintage hi-fi is to try and keep as much original as possible. And it's nice to use these relays. They're quite well made, they're good quality, so if you could use them, then I think you should. The final touch is just to clean off any excessive flux from the board. You don't have to do this, just for appearance more than anything else. So just use a Q-tip with some defluxing fluid, spray it onto the end, and just run that around between the pins to make it look nice and neat. And it's just finished off as well with again a little bit of Deox, so a little bit of flux removal fluid on a rag, and just rubbed across the surface to finish the job. And there we are, one cleaned relay which should go on and keep your amplifier working for another 20 years or so. Job done. So thanks for watching. Hope you found that useful. It's a nice way to restore this old equipment and keep it performing as it should. Thanks again.